Landman Season 2, Episode 7 is one of those episodes that doesn't fail because of bad scenes or weak performances. It struggles because it loses sight of what the main story is supposed to be. Instead of tightening the tension around MTEX, the offshore rig crisis, and Tommy's increasingly unstable leadership, the episode scatters its attention across too many side threads. The result isn't boring, but it is unfocused, and that lack of focus makes the stakes feel strangely muted at a point in the season when they should be peaking. Up until now, Season 2 has been very clear about its core conflict. MTEX is on shaky ground, Galino's influence is growing, and Tommy is stretched impossibly thin trying to be both president and Landman. Every storyline fed into that central pressure. Even personal drama, Cammie's distrust, Angela's volatility, Cooper's financial stress, all connected back to the company's survival. Episode 7, however, starts to drift away from that spine, and once it does, the momentum slows. The offshore rig situation, which should be the episode's anchor, is pushed to the background. Instead of deepening the logistical, financial, or ethical consequences of going offshore, the episode treats it more like a looming backdrop. We're reminded that it's dangerous and expensive, but we don't spend enough time inside the decision-making or the fallout. That's a problem because the offshore move is supposed to be the biggest gamble MTEX has ever made. When it's sidelined, the tension that's been building all season loses its bite. At the same time, the episode introduces or expands multiple side arcs without clearly tying them back to the main conflict. Some character moments are well-written and even entertaining, but they feel like detours rather than developments. Instead of sharpening the central question, can MTEX survive under this leadership? The episode keeps asking smaller, less urgent questions. That narrative sprawl makes it harder to feel the urgency that's supposed to be driving everyone forward. Tommy's storyline is where this loss of focus is felt most strongly. In earlier episodes, his exhaustion, defensiveness, and questionable judgment were clearly framed as symptoms of a larger problem. Episode 7 still shows him struggling, but without a strong external pressure pushing back, his behavior starts to feel repetitive rather than escalating. We see that he's overwhelmed, but we don't see enough consequence in this episode to justify how close to the edge he's supposed to be. Cammie's role suffers in a similar way. Her alignment with Galino should be one of the most dangerous and emotionally charged threads in the show. It's not just a business decision. It's a betrayal of trust, a shift in power, and a direct challenge to Tommy's authority. Episode 7 touches on this, but it doesn't dig deeper. Instead of forcing Cammie to confront the implications of her choices, the episode lets the tension simmer without boiling over. That restraint might work in isolation, but combined with the lack of focus elsewhere, it feels like hesitation. Galino himself becomes more of an idea than a presence in this episode. His influence is still there, but it's indirect and quiet. While that subtlety can be effective, it only works when the main plot is moving decisively forward. Here, his reduced visibility contributes to the sense that the story is circling rather than advancing. The audience knows he's dangerous, but Episode 7 doesn't remind us why in a visceral way. The personal subplots, while not inherently bad, further dilute the episode's impact. They take up space that could have been used to heighten the central conflict. Instead of reinforcing the theme of overextension and risk, they feel like pauses, moments that might be better placed in a breather episode rather than one sitting so close to major turning points. It's not that these stories don't matter, it's that their timing feels off. What's frustrating is that all the pieces for a focused, powerful episode are there. The performances remain strong. The dialogue still has bite. The relationships are layered and believable. But without a clear narrative priority, those strengths don't add up to a cohesive whole. Episode 7 feels like it's setting things up without delivering enough payoff, even on a small scale. This loss of focus also affects pacing. Scenes linger where they should cut sharper, and moments that should land with weight pass by too quickly. The episode doesn't feel slow, but it feels uneven, like it's unsure which story deserves the spotlight. That uncertainty transfers to the audience, making it harder to stay emotionally locked in. In the larger context of Season 2, Episode 7 plays more like a transitional chapter than a pivotal one. The problem is that the season is already deep enough that transitions should be accelerating toward resolution, not diffusing tension. At this stage, viewers expect escalation, clearer lines being drawn, harder choices being made, and consequences beginning to fall. That doesn't mean episode 7 is a failure. It functions as a reminder of how many moving parts Landman is juggling, and it reinforces the idea that chaos is the norm for these characters. But chaos in storytelling still needs direction. Without a strong through line, the episode risks feeling like narrative noise rather than narrative pressure. Ultimately, Landman Season 2, Episode 7 loses focus by trying to do too much without clearly serving the main story. The offshore rig, and Texas survival, and the power struggle at the heart of the series should dominate every frame at this point. When they don't, the show briefly loses the sharp edge that's made Season 2 so compelling. The good news is that this kind of episode often exists to set up a stronger one. If Episode 7 is the calm before the storm, or the disorientation before impact, it can still justify its place in the season. But standing on its own, it feels like a moment where Landman looks away from its own most interesting conflict just long enough for the tension to slip.